weekend.
And welcome to the Emzone Radical Cup Canada here from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park as part of Castrol Victoria Day SpeedFest. I'm Dave Bradley, joined in the booth by Pat Gonzalez and a hearty field of radicals and a spec series, and it's a very interesting one because these are smaller vehicles, but they are very quick and very, very racy. As a matter of fact, some of the quickest cars you will see here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So if you've never seen a Radical SR3 in action, you're in for a treat because it's a good field here today, and it's been split into two sections essentially. You won't tell the difference because the cars are all the same. The only difference is the age of the driver. So there's a brand new series within a series. It's the Emzone Radical Cup Canada Masters Championship for drivers who are over 40 years old. But the cars all identical. 230 horsepower, about 1,365 pounds. That is how light they are. And it powers them to a top speed of about 235 kilometers an hour. It's a 1340cc motorcycle-based engine, 6-speed sequential gearbox. They get up and go in a hurry, 3.1 seconds from 0 to 100. So that gives you an idea of the performance capabilities of the Radical SR3 cars that are all in action here today. We can take you through the starting lineup. Kenny Reedman just a hair off the fast time, a track champion, or track record time, I should say, in the Radical Cup. But Kenny Reedman in the 42 will start on pole. Mark Boyd in the 12 to the outside of him. Owen Clark in the 55 will roll off in third. Then it's Chris Stiles, Travis Hill, Stephen Chen, John Painter in the 9. You'll see that livery. It's got all kinds of stripes for the Aussie. Brand new livery for the 9 of John Painter. Brady Clapham and Alana Carter. Those two drivers making their first starts in the Radical Cup Canada Series. And then in the Masters class, again, this is the race within the race. Age of drivers, the only difference. The 07, Tim Sanderson will start on pole in that class. Daniel Earl in the 39, Robert Burgess, Liang Hu, and John Sobel in the 70 will round out the 5 cars making up the Masters Championship. And you can tell the difference between the two because the regular Radical Cup Canada cars have a black number panel with a white number. The Masters class has a white number panel with a black number. So that's a quick glance to tell the difference and essentially to tell the age of the driver on this one. But we have young and old all mixed in together as the Emzone Radical Cup Championship is set to get underway. The green flag waves, and we are at speed here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
And they battle down into the bottom of turn 1. Looks like Kenny Reedman has jumped out in front here from the pole position. Kenny Reedman leads them over the top of turn number 2. Some side-by-side battles a little bit further back there in the top 10. But Kenny Reedman has gone to the front after topping the practice sessions here yesterday. And the drivers peel off here on at turn number 3, headed down to the south end of the circuit at Moss Corner. Kenny Reedman, runner-up in this championship a year ago, and coming into the weekend said, well, this is the year. After getting things started a couple of years ago, finished 4th that rookie season, improved to 2nd a year ago, and now looking to take the championship. And this is just the first step in a long season with a lot of races all over Ontario and Quebec as they work up the Andretti straightaway on this opening lap. Reedman going to the front early.
Sanderson was battling there with the 12 and the 7, so it looked like Boyd and Stiles all over the 07. So that's a Masters class car in the mix with a regular Radical Cup Canada Series car. So you can tell the cars are equal, but they're racing in different championships on track as everybody starts to get spread out. You can see the performance of these vehicles because these drivers barely lift around this track, believe it or not. It is quick with all of the downforce that's built into these Radical SR3s. They're able to carry a flat quarter, meaning flat out full speed over top of turn number 2 and into turn number 8 as well. Just a little bit of a haze of the throttle, but you keep going. You're flat in turn 4 as you see the cars come through there. So there's Tim Sanderson in the 7 of Chris Stiles filling his mirrors as they exit turn 5 onto the Andretti straightaway.
That's the battle for 4th and 5th, just a couple of car lengths apart. Meanwhile, Kenny Reedman, who was about a second ahead of Owen Clark, 55. They battled throughout the testing and practice sessions yesterday for top honors. And we'll see just how quick this really full flying lap is for Reedman. Remember, his track record he set here last Labor Day weekend was 1:19.989 as they worked down the start-finish straightaway to complete lap number 2. Kenny Reedman at 1:21.556. That is the fastest lap of the race here so far. Owen Clark about 2 seconds back in second, then the 12 of Mark Boyd. The Masters class leader is 4th overall. That is the 07 of Tim Sanderson. And Chris Stiles in car 5 rounds out your top 5. Moving up into 6th, the 30 of Stephen Chen. 22 Travis Hill 7th. 39 Daniel Earl in 8th overall. That would be 2nd place Masters class car. And then 9th is the 2 of Robert Burgess. He is 3rd among the Masters class drivers. And then the 9 of John Painter rounds out your top 10.
And you can see how these cars bounce. You touch the curb, you really want to stay off of them because you have that big splitter at the front of the vehicle. But you can see there's not a lot of suspension travel on these cars. They're very much like a go-kart, but some drivers have told me the harder you push these cars, the better they will pay you back. They have that much downforce that if you give them that extra little bit of speed, then they will stick. As you see the number 22 of Travis Hill joining that battle to now make it a 4-car dice. Stephen Chen is the orange car in the middle there, the number 30. And then Travis Hill, a champion in the Sports Car Championship Canada Series in the TCA class last year, is now driving a Radical Cup Canada class car here today. So Travis Hill is one of those drivers who just jumps behind the wheel of whatever he can and usually ends up at the front of the field.
Looking at that battle that's continuing here between Sanderson, the Masters class leader, 4th overall, and Chris Stiles, your race leader, Kenny Reedman through 5B. That Liqui-Moly Reedman, Roland Reedman management car out of 5C. He is just stretching it out here, 1:21.234. And of course, Kenny became a new dad just a little bit over a week ago. Little baby girl Cleo, and was out here yesterday, did the 2 test sessions, decided to sit out the practice. But Kenny, who can really get around this racetrack on both four wheels and two, a former champion in sport bike competition and won a couple of superbike nationals here back before he moved to the Radical Cup Series 3 years ago.
Now, when you age, you get a cage, right? That's what they say. You get off the two wheels and onto the four because it's a lot safer. And Kenny Riedman has definitely taken to these Radical cars very quickly. And as a matter of fact, has amassed the most points of anybody in series history. So gives you an idea of how quickly that number 42 car went to the front. You saw a quick glimpse of the 55 of young Owen Clark, just 21 years old. He didn't compete in the first three events of 2023, but he still finished fourth in points. That's how competitive the driver of the 55 was. He's running the full season this year, currently running second on track. He's about 3 seconds back from Kenny Riedman, but running pretty comparable as far as lap times go, so not letting the 42 get too far away. Riedman able to open up a gap early, but Owen Clark has sort of settled down and maintained that distance.
Well, that four-car fight that had been going on for fourth position on back has sort of broken apart here into a couple of dandy two-car battles. Tim Sanderson 07 and Chris Stiles in the 7. They have paired off, and then in that orange car is Stephen Chen, car number 30, running in 6th overall and 5th among the non-Masters class runners. And then with him is 22 Travis Hill in 7th, 39 Daniel Earl, 2nd among the Masters drivers in 8th. Robert Burgess runs 9th. He is 3rd in the Masters class. And still John Painter rounding out the top 10. 11th is Brady Clapham as we check. No, Clapham has moved up. Problems for the 20. Let's check it here. Showing that Travis Hill has dropped back. Brady Clapham had been running in 11th and now is being shown in 10th with his fastest lap of the race. The talented teenager coming out of the karting ranks ran here back at the end of April in the FEL test day for the Radical Cup Canada Series cars and raced in some regional events here in the Prototype Challenge about 2 weeks ago. So he's got some good seat time here on this racetrack. And right now, just checking his best lap time, 1:23.690. Still a little bit off the pace here at the moment.
Travis Hill has managed to get around the 30 of Stephen Chen. You saw the white number 22 of Travis Hill taking a look on the orange 30 of Stephen Chen. We can see it just as they come up over the hill. The white car is now out in front. That car has a roll hoop on the front of it, different than any of the other vehicles. It's no different as far as the car goes. The spec of the car is exactly the same. It's an added safety component up to the owner, up to the driver of the car as to whether or not they want it. Travis Hill has acquired that car with that roll hoop, so it just looks a little different. It performs exactly the same as any of the other cars on the track at the same time. But there's Tim Sanderson, the 07. So he's your leader in the Masters class, but he has Chris Stiles in behind. And what's interesting is that Chris Stiles is 40 years old, so he is eligible to be a driver in the Masters class. He is elected to race in the Radical Cup Championship, so that's why he is the black number panel as compared to the white number panel of the 07 of Tim Sanderson. But Tim Sanderson is one of those drivers, again, if you watch road racing in Canada, you know who Tim Sanderson is, a veteran of the Porsche Cup Canada Series in the old GT3 Cup cars. He ran that for several years, and now he's found a home in the Radical Cup Championship, the Emzone Radical Cup Championship presented by Michelin.
We've got another Masters class drivers moving up here nicely. Daniel Earl, car number 39, running 8th overall, 2nd among the Masters class drivers. He is closing in very quickly on Stephen Chen in that orange number 30 car. That is going to be the battle here for 7th and 8th very, very shortly as we work lap number 8. Kenny Riedman going through. His fastest lap here is 1:21.234. And right now, Owen Clark almost 3 seconds back of the race leader. The best battle on the racetrack, this race going on between Sanderson and the 7 car of Chris Stiles. Your race leader, Kenny Reedman, that predominantly black with some red accents, Liqui-Moly. Roland Reedman Management, sponsored through turn 5C. And he rockets up that Andretti straightaway. About a good 30 car lengths back is Owen Clark. That is almost 3 seconds.
You know what, though? If you start looking at the times, and most important, you look at the distance on the track, the 55 of Owen Clark is starting to eat into that race lead that was built up by the driver of the number 42, Kenny Reedman. It really sort of rocketed out to about a 3-second lead last time across the stripe. It was about 2.8 seconds, so that's not a huge difference, but it does appear as though the 55 is coming. We'll see now, yeah, 2.7, so another 1/10 of a second eaten into that lead. It could very well be that Kenny Reedman looks in his mirrors, he sees he has a gap, and he has eased up just a little bit, and that's allowing the hard-charging number 55 of Owen Clark to close the gap just a little bit. It's a good chance the 42 of Kenny Reedman still has some reserve in the tank to turn it up if he needs it a little bit later on. He does have the quickest lap of the race so far, as you mentioned, but not really much quicker than Owen Clark. As you take a look at Mark Boyd, who's running in 3rd position, he just turned his quickest lap of the race that last time by, but he's 8 seconds back of 2nd place, Owen Clark. So the top 3 really spread out here in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada Championship presented by Michelin. As you take a look at the 12 of Mark Boyd. Again, another driver who's eligible to run in the Masters division, but is elected to compete in the Radical Cup Championship. 19 career starts does Mark Boyd. Consistent top 10 finisher is yet to step on the podium. Today could be that day for the driver, the number 12.
We pick up on the battle up the Andretti straightaway for 10th, involving the 9 of John Painter and the 17 or the 77 of the teenager Brady Clapham. Looking at their lap times, both of those drivers mid-minute 23s. Painter and Clapham were both here racing a couple of weeks ago at the regional event, getting set for this opening round of the Emzone Radical Cup Canada Series. And right now, they're just about 3 or 4 car lengths apart, working on the start-finish straightaway to complete what will be their 9th lap here on the racetrack as they go through. Kenny Reedman continues to run out in front. Just checking those lap times. Looks like Reedman has picked it back up. He was a couple of 10ths quicker than Owen Clark on that last lap. But right now, the best battle on the racetrack, the race for the 10th place position. Brady Clapham closing here on John Painter in car number 9, as they are not all that far back from the 9th place driver. That is Masters class runner Robert Burgess. And into the Moss hairpin, there's just 2 car lengths separating John Painter in car number 9 and Brady Clapham, 77, the rookie driver.
John Painter not only has an awesome new livery with all the stripes and the orange and the black, but he also has something different as he sees some smoke coming from the left front corner of the 77 of Brady Clapham. Keep an eye on that car as he works through turn number 8. I was going to say, John Painter has different end plates on that rear wing. You'll see it flash by. It's the Aussie flag, so Aussie heritage for John Painter, different than the Canadian flag seen on the 77 of Brady Clapham. But that was down the straightaway we saw smoke, so either he's got a tire rub, maybe some rubber buildup that was just burning off, but we haven't seen any more smoke from the left front corner of the number 77 of Brady Clapham just yet. Interesting spot to see that. I would have thought maybe he got hard on the brakes, maybe he lit up the tire, but that was on the middle of the straightaway. Doesn't happen. The car's still very racy. Taking a look into turn number 3 is Clapham in the Emzone back number 77. He'll back off and run single file into turn number 4, but the 17-year-old is very much getting those elbows out and challenging the driver of the number 9, John Painter.
Well, this is reminiscent of a battle they had in that prototype challenge a couple of weeks ago here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Both drivers running right about on the same pace as we go back to the race leader, Kenny Riedman, in car number 42. As his last lap, again another lap at 1:21.549. Owen Clark 1:21.543. So
yeah, but Owen Clark just turned the fastest lap of anyone a couple of laps ago. So a 1:21.2, even quicker than the 1:21.23 of Kenny Riedman. So Owen Clark definitely has some speed in him in that 55. He stepped on the podium 3 times here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in the fall. As you see, that's John Sobel in this 70 car following through here in turn 5. The Mr. Lubin Tires backed entry, 5B, and now onto the Andretti straightaway. But Owen Clark does have 1 win to his credit already, that coming on the streets of Toronto. That's your race leader.
And that Sobel car is running a lap down at the moment as Kenny Riedman works through turn number 9. Next time by, it'll be 12 laps up on the board. Riedman had the fastest lap of the race there for a while, lost it to Owen Clark, and now we'll take it right back. 1:21.131 for the Meaford, Ontario driver, Kenny Riedman, as he goes back out with the fastest lap of the race, that 1:21.131. It comes on lap number 12. Owen Clark now 3 seconds back, and then 15 seconds back in third is Mark Boyd in car number 12. Right now, that is your provisional podium. And then as we look at the Masters class drivers, Tim Sanderson, 07, running 4th overall, would be first in that class. And then behind him would be the 39 of Daniel Earl, 8th overall, second among the Masters class drivers. And then Robert Burgess would be 3rd in the Masters class, running 9th in terms of overall positions here on the racetrack. We're coming up on the 18-minute mark. It'll be 22 minutes to go in this 40-minute Emzone Radical Cup Canada race number 1. They'll be out here tomorrow morning at 10:30 with their second race of the weekend.
That's Travis Hill in the 22 is catching this group as they move in line behind the 70 of John Sobel. As we mentioned, John Sobel lap down to your race leader, so he's going to tuck to the outside and let this leader or lead lap group make their way through. Look at Travis Hill, wily veteran, as he stuck his nose out just a little bit longer, just to see if there was an opportunity to maybe keep that run going on the inside. It closed up fairly quickly as Chris Stiles got back in line in the 70. So this is for position on track. Obviously the 07 running in the Masters class, so leading there, but between the 7 and the 22, they are still battling for 4th and 5th in class in the Radical Cup Canada Championship.
Looking at that three-way fight here coming into turn number 3, and it is the 07 of Tim Sanderson holding off Chris Stiles, and then Travis Hill has done a nice job of reeling them in the last couple of laps, running very low 1:23 lap times. Meanwhile, Kenny Riedman, that lead has stretched to about 3.5 seconds as Riedman goes even quicker here on lap number 13, 1:21.011. So he is knocking on the door of a 1:20 lap time as Kenny Riedman goes through 14 laps. And on that one, Owen Clark able to gather back up some of that ground. It's down to 2.6 seconds.
There goes Hill. Hill made a move on the outside on the Andretti straightaway. He's going to hold it in turn number 8. And single file in turn number 9 and on to turn 10. So the driver, the 22, manages to get around the 7 of Chris Stiles, and that's just being a veteran, being patient, and picking your opportunities, as Travis Hill did to get around the 7 of Chris Stiles. Now he will give chase on the 07 of Tim Sanderson. So a difference of 4th and 5th in class, and between Hill and Stiles, 5th and 6th on track, as the 22 now tries to close the gap on the 7. You can see racing side by side how much it actually costs you on track as far as distance goes. He's 07, able to open up a bit of a gap. It's not huge, but it's about 4/10 at this point over the 22. We'll see how long it takes the Shopify back number 22 to close that up, because Travis Hill is on it. He's been very, very quick here in the late going of this race. Of course, diving into a prototype style car, racing in the States a couple of times. That's a new venture for the Tooth Autosport group, as Travis Hill moves out of the sedans that he ran in the FEL Sports Car Championship Canada Series last year, and now into a more prototype series, and now into the Radical Cup Championship, the Emzone Radical Cup Championship here, presented by Michelin as well. Very competitive in his first race behind the wheel of that car.
Those 4th, 5th, and 6th place cars down through turn number 1. Sanderson leading the trio. Travis Hill, the new 5th place runner overall. And then it is Chris Stiles in car number 7. Then we've got a pretty good gap back to the orange number 30 of Stephen Chen. Then the battle for 2nd and 3rd among the Masters drivers. 39 Daniel Earl, the 2 of Robert Burgess, and 8th and 9th. And John Painter manages to hold off Brady Clapham there in 10th and 11th, as they've been going at it now for several laps as we come up on the 22-minute mark, so just past the halfway point. And it has been all Kenny Reedman, qualified on the pole, has led every lap here so far. We'll compare lap times here on lap number 16, a minute 21.041 for Kenny Reedman, a minute 21.355 for Owen Clark. So that lead gap continues to accordion back and forth between Kenny Reedman and Owen Clark. Now it's almost 3 seconds back to Owen Clark as he desperately tries to reel in Reedman.
Such a cat and mouse game between these top 2 drivers. Kenny Reedman gives up a couple of tenths, and Owen Clark had it down to 2.4 seconds for a period of time. Remember, it was up over 3 seconds, that gap at the front of the field, not too long ago. And then the driver of the 55 really turns up the wick, and he closes in on the 42 by half a second. Then Kenny Reedman just flexes a little bit once again, and he opens up a 0.3 of a second lead once again over the 55. So yeah, it's very much a back and forth cat and mouse game between the driver of the 42 and the driver of the 55. But what's interesting is he saw Kenny Reedman as he heads down the Andretti straightaway. It's an opportunity for the drivers to breathe a little bit, and he took a look in his mirror as he was heading down the straightaway. So no doubt he's keeping track of where that 55 car is. Does he have to push? Can he ride a little bit? It all depends on where he sees that 55 when he takes a look in that mirror at the same point on the track.
That last lap, another low minute 21 for Kenny Reedman, and a little bit slower for Owen Clark. So that lead now has grown to over 3 seconds. There's Travis Hill at the end of the straightaway trying to get around Tim Sanderson, but Sanderson will turn back the bid by Travis Hill, who was right there. It looked that he was going to be able to make the pass, but no doing. The Masters class driver will turn back that 22 car of Travis Hill as they're bunched as close as they've been all race long. Also running just outside of the top 10, that 77 Brady Clapham has not been able to get around Painter. Brady Clapham has just turned his fastest lap of the race, a minute 23.152. 16 Alana Carter in that Radical Academy car, the young lady coming out of some racing over in England, ran some dirt modifieds, doing a nice job in the car. And boy, have watched her lower her lap times going back to that test day. And here a couple of weeks ago, 1 minute 23.898. She runs in 12th. And then it is Liang Q in 13th, and John Sobel, a lap down, runs in the 14th place spot as we come up on just about 15 minutes remaining in the first of 2 Emzone Radical Cup Canada Series races here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Kenny Reedman into the minute 20s. Finally, 1 minute 20.987 for Kenny Reedman. He's opened up 3.5 seconds on 55 Owen Clark.
Remember that hope that Kenny Reedman was giving Owen Clark for the last several laps? That hope is now gone as Reedman just laid down a cracker of a lap and opens up that gap significantly at the front of the field. This is one of the best battles on the track that we're watching, though. The 07 of Tim Sanderson still trying to hold off the 22 of Travis Hill and the 7 of Chris Stiles. Stiles hasn't gone away since the 22 got around him. He's been able to follow and to learn. Most importantly is for these drivers, when you get in the mix with a veteran like Travis Hill, then you start to follow and you start to learn the race lines. And the quickest way around, Chris Stiles is going to school right now behind the 22 of Travis Hill, but nobody can even keep a glimpse of the 42 of Kenny Reedman. He's that far out in front now as Reedman starts to really push here in the latter half of this Emzone Radical Cup Canada Championship. There's your third place on track is the 12 of Mark Boyd. Again, he is yet to stand on the podium here at a Radical, but today could very well be his day. He's been very, very good, and Painter around in the 9.
That's at Moss Corner in 5B. Not sure if he stalled the engine. There are, I think that was Alana Carter going around the outside. As we look at a pack of cars working down towards the start-finish line, Kenny Reedman has gone even quicker now, a minute 20.752 for Kenny Reedman. And Dave Brady looks like the engine, oh no, the engine is going. He got it going again. And so we stay green here on the racetrack. He'll get it spun around there at 5B and continue up the Andretti straightaway. Kenny Reedman has opened up almost 4.5 seconds on Owen Clark. Clark was able to close it up, and then I think Kenny may have got the signal to use what you've got there, and he stretched it out.
Yeah, for sure. But for John Painter, sitting looking at traffic coming at you is a place you do not want to be as a driver. It doesn't matter if it is in one of the slowest areas of this 10-turn circuit, but Painter manages to refire and get going. Now, he was in such a tight battle with the 77 of Brady Clapham. I don't know if there was any contact there that sent him around. We unfortunately didn't catch that on camera, but in the end result, the 9 goes around and loses a couple of spots. Alana Carter managed to get around, and so did Brady Clapham, completed that pass. So John Painter in 12th the last time he crossed the stripe. But here goes the 22 of Hill. He looks to the inside. Turn number 10 is an opportunity to pass. You have to really be sure it's yours, or there will be contact. And that time the 22 a little uncertain, so he backed off and lives to fight another day. But it looks like the fight is coming to him in turn number 2 as he takes a look on the outside of the 7 of Tim Sanderson.
Kenny Reedman halfway up that Andretti straightaway. The minute 21, or minute 20, pardon me, .5752 for Kenny Reedman, almost 5 seconds clear of Owen Clark. With that spin at Moss Corner by John Painter, goes from 10th down into 12th, moving Brady Clapham up into 10th, and Alana Carter now in car number 16. You saw her get around him at the hairpin up into 11th, and again, I think she's turned her fastest lap here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in a Radical Cup car in this race, getting into the minute 23s as we wind it down here. Just a little over 10 minutes remaining, and it has been all Kenny Reedman, over 5 seconds clear of Owen Clark in the 55. Mr. Lube sponsored entry, 12 Mark Boyd in 3rd. Then your Masters leader, Tim Sanderson, who's got his hands full here with Travis Hill in car number 22 as they work back up across the line. And then Chris Stiles is right there as they mix it up at the front. So those 3 cars as close as they've been throughout the race here this afternoon. We worked lap number 22. And it is Kenny Reedman by over 5 seconds on Owen Clark.
Now look at Sanderson. So there's another veteran, somebody who knows where to defend, where to put your car. You're not blocking, you're defending. You're running a very defensive line in that 07 as he worked his way through turn number 3 and now headed towards turn 4. You can see just a little bit to the inside. He may not be running a full aggressive line. Just watching those mirrors and trying to take away any sort of advantage that the 22 of Travis Hill could get. but now he'll be in full defense mode down the Andretti straightaway as the 22 has a tow. And will he look to the outside again? He tries that move once before. Travis Hill going to stay in line. And coming up over the hill down the Andretti straightaway into turn number 8. They're side by side. So Hill tries to pinch the 7 down. He does, and he will complete the pass. And we got a spin in turn number 8. And I believe it's the 7 of Chris Stiles. Yes, backs it into the tire wall through the asphalt runoff in turn number 8. Stiles doesn't appear to have too much damage to the Purity gas number 7, but that happened just as we were watching that pass be completed. Travis Hill around the 07 of Tim Sanderson, and what a heartbreak for Chris Stiles. He was running in 6th position on track. The visor is up. He's okay. You can see him moving around inside the cockpit of that Radical SR3.
He may have got spooked a little bit and lost his focus there, looking at that battle was going on just ahead of him on the racetrack between Travis Hill and Tim Sanderson. But right now
it's still just a local caution at this point, so we stay green right now, but where that car is sitting, I think the race officials will be discussing whether or not they'll need a full course caution to get that 7 removed from there. But as it stands right now, cars are moving at race speed. Just a local caution in turn number 8 for the spun number 7 of Chris Stiles as he falls down the order.
Kenny Reedman in car number 42 coming up here to put a lap on the 16 of Alana Carter. Oh, and Alana Carter spins right in front of Kenny Reedman. Contact with Reedman, who I think has also gone around. Yes, he has. There's Owen Clark. And all of a sudden, we've got a new leader in turn 5B. Alana Carter spun in Moss Corner. Kenny Reedman tried to go around the outside. He clipped her car. He spun around. And now we've got a new leader here. Kenny has got that car stalled. Heartbreak for Kenny Reedman, as it looks like he's got it refired. This is going to put him well back, and he's going to continue up that back straightaway, but it looks like there's some damage to the car. Here's your new leader off of turn number 10 on the start-finish straightaway. As we come to the line, it'll be almost 33 minutes gone by, just 7 minutes to go, and that car is damaged.
Big problems for the 42 of Kenny Reedman, off to such a dominant start here in 2024, and that car is crab walking down the back straightaway. The rear end completely knocked out of skew. And the 16 of Alana Carter, you can see equal damage to the right rear corner of that car as well. So the crew goes to work on Alana Carter. She limped her way back to the paddock or the pit lane area, and that's exactly where we're going to watch and see the number 42. But Kenny Reedman, you could see he wasn't pleased. He shook his fist in turn number 5 as he sat rolling backwards. Alana Carter able to refire the number 16 and get going, but it was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. Wrong place at the wrong time for the driver, the 42. But wow, what a gift for Owen Clark. The youngster, 21 years old. He's got a win to his credit already in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada. And right now he has an enormous lead over the 12 of Mark Boyd as Kenny Reedman limps his way back to pit lane. You can see just the way the driver's reacting, and you know he's not. It's just heartbreaking when you're in that situation.
Well, he appeared to be on his way to an easy win. It stretched that lead out over Owen Clark to almost 6 seconds when Alana Carter, going through 5B, spun the car. Kenny Reedman was about to go around and lap the 16 car. He got collected up, so Owen Clark gifted the lead. And right now, that's going to move Mark Boyd in the 12 car up into second, and Travis Hill is going to take over the third place spot in car number 22. 07 Tim Sanderson fourth, the 30 of Stephen Chen in
Travis
fifth.
Hill has gotten around Mark Boyd as well while we were watching that, so the 22 goes to second. Mark Boyd drops down to third, and he's in jeopardy while he'll hold his podium position. in the Radical Cup. But on track, Tim Sanderson is giving some pressure to the driver, the 12. But boy, has the 22 of Travis Hill really come on. Now, to catch the leader, he's going to need a miracle or a full course caution, because the difference between first and second is 39 seconds. It's nearly 40 seconds at this point. So Owen Clark can pretty much put it on cruise control at this point. But what a drive by the Shopify number 22 of Travis Hill, now second in the Radical Cup Championship, the Emzone Radical Cup Championship, as Mark Boyd continues to hold off the 07 of Tim Sanderson.
Wow, what a wild and woolly finish. It looked like we were headed to a easy win for Kenny Reedman until that incident in turn number 5B. As we look at the race leader, the 55 of Owen Clark, off at turn number 3. He's got almost 40 seconds on the 22 of Travis Hill, who has moved up into that second place spot, and then Mark Boyd in car number 12 sitting in third. Right now, Kenny Reedman is being shown in 10th on pit road. He does have the fastest lap of the race at 1:20.752. That will put him on the pole position for the race tomorrow. But that is small consolation, with a big difference between the points for first and the points to finish 10th, if in fact he does manage to hold on to that 10th place position, because there are a couple of cars that are circulating here, including that 3 of Liang Q. Alana Carter also on pit road, and then the other car that's a couple of laps down, John Sobel in car number 70, sitting 13th, but he might be able to move up a position or two.
And you can see the gap has opened up between the 22 of Hill and the 12 of Boyd, and equal gap now back to the 07 of Tim Sanderson. So what looked to be a close battle for a little while there has now sort of settled down a little bit. So it's an equal distance between those 3 drivers. So Hill in second on track, Mark Boyd third on track, Tim Sanderson, your leader in the Masters class, and fourth on track, Stephen Chen is currently in 5th in the 30, but Chen just a little bit further adrift of the 07 of Tim Sanderson as they click off yet another lap, and still is Owen Clark. And a little while ago you saw Owen Clark go around the 70 of John Sobel. Now Sobel, racing in the Masters class, was given the Spirit of Motorsport Award last year, and that's because he turned an unfortunate incident where he got injured in the first round in the Radical Cup Championship, and then actually turned over the reins to Owen Clark for the rest of the year, and that's the vehicle that Owen Clark drove to 4th in points. So, you know, credit to John Sobel. They enter this year as teammates, and Owen Clark making the most of it here in race number 1, the Emzone Radical Cup Championship.
We've got less than 2 minutes to go before that checkered flag will come out. Would think maybe as early as next time by, they're going to get that last lap board. But Owen Clark gifted the lead here after that incident at Moss Corner involving Alana Carter and Kenny Reedman. And Reedman will be bitterly disappointed. I know in the offseason, a good conversation with his dad, Roland, and Kenny when they were crewing for the Daytona 200. And they figured after 4th in the championship in their rookie season, runner-up last year, the new track record here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, they were all set for a big 2024 campaign and hopefully a championship. It all came unglued there at turn 5B when he got collected up with Alana Carter, who had spun just as he was about to make the pass going into 5B. 55, your race leader, Owen Clark, brings that blue, yellow, and white machine off of turn 9 into 10, looking down to the flag stand. I believe they've pulled out that last lap board. Yes, there it is. Last lap board is out for the race leader. He is gone.
Yeah, he's well out in front of the rest of the field. Last we checked, it was about a 40-second gap on Travis Hill in the 22, who's running second on track. As a matter of fact, Travis Hill just now coming across the line, and Clark is making his way through turn number 3. So that gives you an indication of just how big that gap is and how much that time distance translates to real estate on track. As Owen Clark makes his way through turn number 4 and headed up through Moss Corner for the final time. There's Travis Hill. So he gets 38 seconds is the difference between first and second officially on timing and scoring. But Hill about a 2-second gap now on the 12 of Mark Boyd.
Looks like he is going to complete 30 laps during the 40-minute run here this afternoon. Also, Liang Q in car number 3 has moved to 10th. John Sobel has made up those laps in car number 70 sufficiently that he has worked his way up to 11th. So Kenny Reedman on pit road being shown in 12th, 16 Alana Carter.
On the front stretch, and the win will go to the 55 of Owen Clark. So he opens up the 2024 campaign in victory lane as a bit of a gift as he was trailing the 44 of Kenny Reedman in the late stages of this race, and then just set it on cruise control and rode his way home. There you see the white car. That's the 22 of Travis Hill. He'll work his way through turn number 8. This is a battle on track, and Tim Sanderson has made his way around Mark Boyd. Now, for championship, it means nothing. On track, it means something. But Sanderson will take home the win in the first ever Emzone Radical Cup Canada Masters Division race in the 07. You see double fists in the air, a little celebration from the driver of the 07 as Tim Sanderson will take the win in the Masters class. So Owen Clark, Travis Hill, and Mark Boyd, the top 3, as Boyd gets his first podium in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada. Tim Sanderson, followed by Daniel Earl and Robert Burgess. That's your top 3 in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada Masters class. But a fantastic drive from 21-year-old Owen Clark as he picks up his 2nd career victory here in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada. I'm Dave Bradley. Pat Gonzalez joined me in the booth. Thank you very much for joining us here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
So if there's any consolation for Kenny Reedman, is the fact that he did have the fastest lap of that race and will once again start on the pole position for the 2nd of our Emzone Radical Cup Canada races. It goes out here tomorrow morning at 10:30. That'll be a 40-minute run, the Emzone Radical Cup Canada Series presented by Michelin. But heartbreak at Moss Corner for Reedman when it looked like he was headed to maximum points at this opening round, and now the pressure will be on to take the win tomorrow and at least score some points here. As we look at Reedman, he will be shown here 12th, and since he completed 24 laps with the winner Owen Clark 30, that meets the requirement to complete at least 50% of the laps in order to be officially scored as a finisher and pick up whatever championship points 12th place may produce from the effort here this afternoon. But
but take nothing away from the drive that Owen Clark had in the 55. I mean, he kept the 42 of Kenny Reedman honest in the early going. He kept close to him, kept pressuring throughout, and the 55 comes home as your race winner. And you know, he's going to be absolutely ecstatic with today's drive, and he gets to do it all again tomorrow in race number 2. See if he can bag back-to-back race wins for Owen Clark. Travis Hill up 4 spots from his original starting spot in the 22, coming home in second. So a great drive there. Mark Boyd struggled a little bit in the later stages of that race. So he dropped down behind Tim Sanderson, still finishes up on the podium in the Emzone Radical Cup Canada. And, of course, hats off to the first winner in the Masters class, the 07 of Tim Sanderson. And what a character he is, and what a party that's going to be in his paddock area this afternoon. And, again, to make some minor tweaks, make that car a little bit better, and be back tomorrow for it.
Yeah, we'll do it all over again tomorrow. Also, good run there for the 30 car of Stephen Chen. He will be fourth in the class, and then rounding out the top five, Brady Clapham, who finished 8th overall. 3 Masters class drivers ahead of him, so he will get credited with a 5th place finish. Pretty good debut for the karting racer, who's didn't go to F1600s like many of the drivers coming out of the karting championships end up in, but going to the Radical cars and accredited himself very, very well here, picking up a 5th place finish in the class with a best lap at 1:23.152, and that may very well be the fastest he's ever gone in a Radical Cup Canada car. They'll check over the racetrack. Up next on the schedule here at 3:20. So that is coming up in about 10 minutes from now, will be the Toyo Tires F1600 Championship, race number 1. Those cars already lined up there in the pre-grid area. Chad Webster will be joining us here in the booth. And then still to come here this afternoon, Dave Bradley will rejoin us just after 4 o'clock for the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin, race number 1 of the weekend. And then Adam Ross will be in the booth for our NASCAR Canada Series qualifying after they got in their practice session earlier this afternoon. And then we'll wrap it up with the second of our Perry Performance Super Production Challenge races. That goes off at 6 o'clock this afternoon. So the cars lined up now, showing 8 minutes to the start of our Toyo Tires F1600 Championship. Again, a big welcome to those race fans who may be here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for the very first time enjoying this Castrol Victoria Day SpeedFest. As would like to recognize some folks from nearby Pontypool, just about 10 minutes northeast of here. Chris and Andrea Van Allen and their 3 kids who are seeing their very first motorsport event here at the track. Young Grace, Jack, and Sophie here enjoying the sunshine as that overcast has moved off, and we're set to go here with this Toyo Tires F1600 race that is coming up here next. And again, looking ahead to tomorrow, we'll be on the racetrack at 9 a.m. with the second of our Toyo Tires F1600 Championship races. Super Production Challenge will follow, and then the second of our Emzone Radical Cup Canada presented by Michelin races, and then the second of the Nissan Sentra Cup Series. And then Sports Car Championship Canada will have their second race of the weekend before we get into the lunch break, and then come back with our NASCAR Canada 51-lap run here this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon, as those drivers are yet to qualify. That'll come up here at 5 o'clock as Adam Ross will be joining us here in the booth. And then we will roll off the Assa Abloy, a Sentra 51-lap, 200-kilometer run at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. But before that, an all-important qualifying session coming up at 5. And then to cap off our weekend, we'll see these same Toyo Tires F1600 cars out for their third and final race of the weekend. Again, our public address broadcast available at 90.7 on your FM dial. We're just about 5 minutes away from rolling cars here onto the racetrack. The Toyo Tires F1600 Championship run that'll go here for 30 minutes. Chad Webster has joined us here in the booth. And Chad, an interesting day so far. We've seen some incredible racing, some heartbreak that we just saw there with Kenny Riedman. But you've got to be looking forward to this Toyo Tires F1600 race. You're going to be watching some of the drivers as a former karting racer yourself, or even still doing a bunch of karting racing. Watch some of these young drivers coming out of the karting ranks, taking the next step up to these F1600 cars. We're looking for a multi-car battle throughout this one with the two major teams in the series, Britain West Motorsport and Connor Klubine, and of course the four-member Brian Graham Racing team. They were visiting with us here yesterday. Got three Canadian drivers and then Alex Cyril from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he's not the first good American karting race driver able to come here and work with Brian Graham. Should be a great 30-minute run coming up here next.
I absolutely agree. I'm excited to see what we have. It was very, very close in qualifying. I believe the top 5, 6 were just right with each other, less than a second. So we're going to get rolling here as Antonio Constantino will lead them off to the green flag. Had a chance to interview him after his first ever pole position in 1600 competition. Was absolutely over the moon by it. Had a lot of his family here as well. Everybody down there was so happy for him. Had a lot of handshakes from his teammates, Callum Dunbar, Parker Gill, and Alexander Cyril, all clapping up for him. But he has to deal with Connor Klubine, who has arguably been the fastest man this whole weekend. Constantino, though, has been right with him, and he's bested him at the best time. How does this start go, and how well of a start does he get? As we're about 3 minutes away from the actual start of this race. But I think this is going to be real interesting once we drop the green flag and get rolling here. James Lindsay, always a driver to look out for. Same with Henderson Knox in the 48. I believe he starts off in third. He'll be hungry to get up there. Dunbar and Cyril just a little bit further up. They're just outside of the top 5. Big shout out to the number 64 of Jonathan Patron, able to, on his debut race, getting up and into the top 5 in qualifying in one of the Britain West entries. That's the car that won the championship last year with Logan Paxa. He's got some big shoes to fill, and right now he's doing so very, very nicely. Let's see if he can keep that up. And the last of the Brian Graham racing cars, Parker Gill, just outside the top 10. He starts off in 11th. I think he was a little disappointed with how he qualified, and they said they kind of just have to learn the draft better in qualifying. But again, a lot of these guys are rookies. Experience comes with time, and I think we're going to see them improve a lot more as the rest of the season goes on. It's the first race, and so far we've had some absolute bangers today. As we just mentioned, that Radical Cup Canada race was pretty good. That's unfortunate for Kenny Riedman, leading the race late in some contact with Atlanta Carter, ends up with damage to the 42, and he had to pull out of the race. So that's going to be kind of a climb for him to get back to the top of the championship. And the main man he's probably going to be going up against, Owen Clark, grabbed his first career win. And, of course, in the Nissan Sentra Cup just before this, great battles between Valerie Limoges and reigning champion Alexander Fortin, who ended up taking the win, able to hold off Limoges, the 2022 champion of the series. So no surprise of familiar faces there going at it for the win. But Fortin gets the better of her today. Let's see what happens once they have their second race tomorrow, as we're just a minute away from the cars rolling out onto the grid. Constantino looking for a win in the season opener. He couldn't have gotten off to a better start with this pole position. Let's see if he can hang on to it. But like I said, he's got Connor Klubine, who's arguably been the fastest man here, all over the back of him. And we've seen some very good starts from the outside lane as well. We take it back to last year. Sam Baker was a very good starter on the outside, even though Logan Paxa had the pole. I think he was on pole all 3 races throughout the Labor Day sprints last year as we look through some of the starting order there. Baker was able to get around him in the early part of the race and able to hold him back for a decent amount. So it's all just about how good of a start you can get and if you can hang on to the lead. But